Hello, it's Big Chads. This is the Trading Encyclopedia Daily Education series on my YouTube at Chads Trading. You can find me on Twitter at Big Chads and Bitcoin Live, where I am a founding analyst. For today's lesson, we're going to talk about funding rates in crypto, and this applies to perpetual futures contracts, something people talk a lot about. Perps and funding's too high, funding's too low, it's positive, it's negative. What does it mean? Well, here's a quick chart. We'll talk about a bunch of things here. But here's a chart, for example. So if the funding rate is positive, what that means is there's a bullish sentiment, and traders are holding these contracts, and essentially the contracts are higher than the actual index price. So the index price is the Oracle price across all exchanges. Market meaning, if you want to buy, a perpetual contract, the price is higher than the index. So you're paying. The mechanic, the way it works, is you're paying money to rebalance the market price of the perpetual future back to the index price. This funding is basically a way to balance things out, so there's not too much arbitrage between whatever the futures contracts are for an asset that's being traded and the actual price of the asset, right? So if everybody's bullish and everybody thinks it's going to go up, right, there's more demand for that contract, and the price of the perpetual future is going up, right? But it's going up faster than the actual underlying spot price. And so the people who are long are paying a funding rate. They pay money to the shorts. It's updated every hour, every 8 hours. And you essentially, you're basically paying to be long because everyone's long, everyone thinks it's going to go up, that type of thing. But the funding rate is a rebalancing, right? Now, if you have negative funding, you actually, shorts will pay money, and there's a bearish sentiment. So what's happening is, maybe people think it's going to go down, and the market price for the futures, perpetuals or futures contracts, and the market price for the futures contract is actually lower than the index or the Oracle. Oracle, again, just means the average price across the index. Across all of the exchanges. So if the market price for a futures contract is lower, then essentially means that people think the price is going to go down, and shorts are paying money to longs when you have negative, funding. So you can look for an imbalance when funding rates are really, really high or funding rates are really, really low. That might give you a little bit of a signal. When you have just a small, slightly higher funding rate or slightly lower funding rate, there's maybe not as much information, right? But again, the mechanism is that you're paying this funding rate to kind of rebalance the futures contract price, the perpetual price versus the actual spot price. This allows people to hold these futures contracts, these perps contracts, without having to roll them over into a new contract. They can keep it open. It gives them the ability to use leverage. And you can see here again, what it means to have a positive or negative funding rate. You can check it, by going, to certain exchanges will tell you wherever you're trading is going to tell you, what the funding rate is. And there's other, things you can use, crypto coin API or whatever, even TradingView, for example, can give you information on this. But funding in crypto is a way to keep the price of the perpetual contract is close to the underlying contract, the underlying asset, which is whatever you're trading. And you can, again, use an information to where if you have really high or really low funding, you're going to get some information about that, maybe an overextension of market sentiment in one way or another. But this is funding rate, and this is for the Trading Encyclopedia, the daily education series on my YouTube at Chads Trading. You can find me on Twitter at Big Chads and Bitcoin Live, where I'm a founding analyst. Folks, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Big Chads out.